to be innocent in the way you describe. I concede your point.
Okay. So what
the guy's clearly dumber than dirt.
Yeah, and that's why, and maybe that's why.
And clearly he didn't care if it was true or not. He was
getting his thing done. That's right. I would agree with you on.
Yeah.
Well, he was busy praying to God, and so he thought he was in the right because, Jesus was on his side.
Of course, everybody knows that.
Right.
All right. I want to get to one more lie, which is that turns out he was right. It's the cover of Newsweek this week. Yay, victory. Purple ink on fingers, just like 2005. And George Bush was right after all. As Thomas Friedman wrote in the New York Times yesterday, it's a good thing we liberated those people.
You're kidding, right? I didn't see that, but you're kidding. Are you kidding?
Oh, no. Yeah, never mind the deaths. We'll let historians worry about the deaths.
No, they voted in the Soviet Union, too. That didn't make them a democracy.
Yeah.
It's not who votes,
we
it's
vote
who counts the votes. As Stalin said, it's not who votes, it's who counts the votes, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't need a purple finger to tell me that somehow we've delivered a democracy when that's entirely untrue.
Well, if you haven't seen the cover of Newsweek this week, it's Bush walking off stage is really more like it, from the deck of the USS Lincoln in his mission accomplished speech. And it's saying mission finally accomplished. It all worked out in the end.
Yeah, and what was the mission? Can somebody tell me? It's like they're looking for something that looks successful, and they'll say, okay, that was the mission. Because as this was happening, nobody knew what the mission was.
I'm pretty sure that the mission was just taking those pallets of cash from the Federal Reserve and running.
Okay, I tend to agree with you on that, and also,
I'm just jealous, though, because I wish I had a pallet of cash.
I wish I had a bailout, but that's, No, but what I'm saying is, think about this. For the entire presidency, nobody knew what the mission was, right? And yet, they see something positive and they go, aha, that was the mission, it's accomplished. Yeah. Well, why couldn't they tell us that was the mission all along?
Yeah, well, it makes perfect sense, and maybe we ought to just follow the Tom Friedman model ourselves and leave all the bad parts of the historians to worry about, and maybe we should just declare victory and go.
The problem is we don't have the luxury of allowing the historians to fight over it because there's so much propaganda that it's impossible everything's become opinion. Like facts are debated as though they're opinion. No, the earth is round. No, the earth is flat.
Yeah, after all, Bush, in his exit interview, said, look, we had to invade because Saddam would not let the Iraqi inspectors in. And Charlie Gibson said, wow, yeah, I guess you're right. I don't remember what 2003 was like, so if you say so. And then that was it. He won.
Even though they were there. I mean, what I'm saying, as long as you can, you're talking about a very lazy, in some cases, more sinister type of media. You're talking about an attention span for the public that, American Idol is basically the longest thing they'll watch. And you're talking, so it's very easy to sort of change things now so historians have a different perspective. Like, have you seen these billboards people are talking about where it says, do you miss him yet? And it's Bush.
Yeah. Yeah.
And nobody knows who put that up, but suddenly, people are using those billboards as, see, we do miss him, even though if it's like me saying, okay, take a photo of me, put it up, and then have someone go point to it as proof of, that people miss me, even though I'm the one who put up the photo.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm sure it was his friends at Clear Channel, who, of course, are the ones who made him a millionaire in the first place when they bought the Texas Rangers from him.
Well, in any case, what I'm saying is I don't think in this day and age where everything is being allowed to stand, where all you have to do is apologize, but the record isn't corrected to the point where people still think that Saddam Hussein attacked us on 9/11.
Yeah, to the point where even I got to sit here and scramble and send emails and make phone calls to try to remember the names Sabri and Habush.
Well, even if you don't remember the names, you do remember the facts. You don't have to remember that, what number President Abraham Lincoln was to know that he gave the Gettysburg Address.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? You don't have to remember every detail, but
I do, but you're right. Yeah, I see what you're...
As you just pointed out, the whole Gibson interview, the fact that Bush is allowed to say that as though it were fact.
Yeah, well, even, we were talking about the Jon Stewart thing and the torture interview the other day, and, even Jon Stewart, who I really like, he gets all his news from TV. So he's really smart, and he remembers the things that he saw on TV that are important, but he doesn't read antiwar.com. If he did, he would have kicked that guy's ass, you know?
I bet he kicked his ass anyway, though.
He did, but man, if he was a regular reader of Glenn Greenwald's blog, it would have been an entirely different interview, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I agree with you, but, you know, he is a comedian. He's really not. You got to cut the guy some slack. I will say this, though, what I find remarkable is that nobody seems to remember that Cheney openly lied that we ever waterboarded anybody for years, and now he's very publicly saying, well, they're terrorists, it doesn't count, or, you know, or they're enemy combatants, and we were trying to save American lives, and it's almost like it's a given that the whole legal question is irrelevant to everybody. You know?
Well, and in fact, I was going to say, what about Al-Libi, who I think McClatchy showed that the torture went up in frequency right around the time they were trying to get Al-Libi and a few others, good old Zubaydah, to point the finger at Saddam Hussein for training Al-Qaeda in chemical weapons, and then right after the Iraq War, when they were trying again to get Al-Qaeda detainees to point the finger at Saddam Hussein. That was, I think, McClatchy's headline even was like, hey, it's pretty clear the correlation here, that they were torturing people to get incriminating information about Saddam Hussein.
Right, but I think the biggest problem here is that everything is being presented as somehow fair and balanced when things aren't fair and balanced. Facts are facts. They don't take a side. The earth is round. I'm sorry. It's not flat. You can have your whole flat camp, but that doesn't make it fact. You know? And so we are signatories to the Geneva Conventions, and various other United Nations, covenants against torture and human rights abuses. What was done is illegal. There's no debating that. And yet, the debate is not about whether it's illegal or not, but if it saved American lives. You know, it's a war crime to invade a country, a sovereign nation, without provocation. No one's talking about that, right? They're talking about, well, but Saddam Hussein may have attacked us on 9/11, and there's no evidence for this. Okay, well, it's not that. Okay, well, we wanted to bring democracy, but it's illegal. Everything's become as though you have one expert and another, and they each have an opinion, and there's no fact that everything is equal, and it's not.
Yeah, especially on the torture debate. I mean, I think that's a really important part of this, where they can just basically, you know, in fact, that Jon Stewart interview, the guy said,
Mark Thiessen.
Mark Thiessen, exactly. Jon Stewart asked him, well, wait a minute, if Al-Qaeda captured one of our guys and waterboarded him, you're saying that would be okay? And he said, no, because they're not signatories to the Geneva Conventions. It's okay for us to torture them, but not for them to torture us. And of course, according to the other Scott Horton, who's an actual human rights lawyer and knows all about this stuff for a fact, he says the way the Geneva Conventions are written, it has nothing to do with the captives. It's all about you. If the U.S. government is the signatory, then it binds our behavior in the way we treat detainees. It doesn't matter whether they're signatories or not.
That's right.
And in fact, even the Bush administration had abandoned the argument that it was all about whether they were irregulars and all that years ago. So, but anyway,
this is what I'm saying. No one is, interested, and I'm talking about legitimate news outlets, and pointing out, calling things by their proper names. Torture is torture. You can call it really pretty things like enhanced interrogation, but it doesn't change what it is. So A, not calling things by their proper names, and B, putting everything on equal footing, fact and opinion on equal footing. And as a result, if you want to talk about who lied or who's the most responsible for the Iraq War and all of the stuff that's gone on, the blame falls squarely on the shoulders of the Fourth Estate, because they are the ones who are responsible for telling us the truth. Or I should say, we are responsible for telling the people the truth. You expect politicians to lie.
Well, the problem is here, though, is especially when it's the Iraq War,